Chapter 261. Trackers 3. The specters raised their mana once again. The air around them started to vibrate, and it wasn't just mere vibrations. It was as if the air had turned into water. Breathing became difficult, and they felt the weight on their shoulders. The phenomenon was caused by the immense expansion of mana. Anyone unable to cast a 5-star shield barrier could barely stand under its weight. As the elite forces of the world's strongest clan, the specters wielded a power beyond the ordinary. "Do you want to kill the boy? I thought I already told you. You're too late. You're not very good with words, are you?" Octavia smiled slightly at Mirakan's words. "The records told me that you were the greatest dragon in history. But now that I see you with my own eyes, you are unworthy of that title. Your words convey nothing but your anxiety." Screech! A terrible, piercing sound came from the sky. It was the sound of the specter's red abyss pushing back Mirakan's shadow energy. The red mana began to spread like stains across the sky, which had been darkened by the shadow energy. Mirakan raised his shadow energy, but the 40% of power he regained was not enough to push back the specter's mana. The pace of change in the sky accelerated even further as Octavia began to add her mana to the red abyss. "I thought Andre Zippel was a beast. But these guys are much stronger than him." There were 15 specters here. Jean analyzed the flow of their mana and became convinced that there must be more than 15. There are some gaps in how their mana complements each other. It was a common problem when the number of magicians casting a chain spell was insufficient. The red abyss could only unleash its full strength when launched by the entire group of specters. It was a headache to think that there were more than 15 magicians who were as strong as the Black Knights. In fact, those forces were not revealed to external forces at all. Unlike the Black Knights of Runcandle, not even Jean knew about the Zippel specters. They were, quite literally, a secret force. There was a good reason why Runcandle refrained from total war against the Zippel, even with the Genesis Knight Siren Runcandle in command. "Are you all right?" Misha transformed into her human form and landed next to Jean. "Yes, thanks to you." Jean spat blood. He took Misha's hand and stood up. He felt nauseous. His light heart was overheating due to the aura backlash, and his vision had blurred. He was not in a condition to fight. Although Mirakan and Misha came to his aid, he still couldn't relax. "I had no idea that magicians of such levels would come in droves. Consider yourself lucky. The specters I faced in the past were stronger than them. But Mirakan's ego is about to take a blow. Since the specters organized themselves after Timar Runcandle's death, Mirakan had never fought against the specters. On the other hand, Misha had fought against the specters on several occasions over the past 1,000 years. And she had concluded that the specters were stronger than any other combat organization in the world. "Jean." "Yes. Listen carefully to everything I say, and do not refute or ask questions." Shriek. The sky turned almost completely red again. Now only traces of Mirakan's shadow energy remained. Gaining or losing territories was a critical element in a battle against groups of magicians, especially if chain spells were cast in the sky. If they couldn't prevent the sky territory from being covered with the mana of opposing magicians, they would be constantly bombarded with attacks. The Zippel reinforcements will start arriving soon. In other words, we have no chance if we prolong the fight. Not even the Dark Dragons could withstand it if more specters were deployed as reinforcements from the clan's headquarters, Kadin, or even the White Knight and Kozek. There was a possibility that even Kiliak Zippel himself might appear. No matter how strong the Dark Dragons were, if they could single-handedly take down the Zippel clan's top forces, the Zippel would never have become the world's strongest clan in the first place. Jean silently nodded. He had expected this. He knew they couldn't kill Octavia and the specters, even with Misha and Mirakan's arrival. "So, you will escape with Mirakan. I will buy time. And don't forget, that is the strength of the enemies you will have to crush in the future." You say it as if this is the last time we'll talk. I told you not to ask, so now you play with words. Why? Do you think I'm sacrificing myself to save you? Yes. If necessary, I will. One never knows what might happen. Whoosh! Shadow energy gathered in Misha's hand. It soon formed into a spear. Then the shadow energy extended from the spear, covering her entire body in armor. Once fully armed, her body flickered like a dark ghost. But I don't think I'll die at their hands today, so rest and escape from here. Not even the specters of the past could harm me. I will also escape once I feel you've fled far enough. I have already told Murakan about this plan. He had already formulated this plan when they began breaking through the exclusion barrier set up by the specters. Victory was impossible, so Jean had to escape with Murakan. That was why Murakan had boasted so confidently that they wouldn't be able to kill Jean. But I can't leave you behind, Misha. Jean desperately wanted to say those words, but he didn't speak them aloud. It was something he could only say when he was powerful enough to turn the situation around, or when he had the absolute determination to die fighting alongside her. But Misha had no intention of dying in battle for the sake of her ego as a dark dragon of Sodaret, and Jean had no desire to give up on the future against his duties. Even if he insisted on fighting alongside her, the only conclusion would be a senseless death. Therefore, Jean decided to propose something that could be of practical help. Misha, this is territory of the secret palace. Baradin had intentionally built his vacation home on an uninhabited island in the Western Sea to avoid the scrutiny of his clan. As the Western Sea fell under the influence of the secret palace, Baradin thought that the Zippel couldn't openly send people to this place. His judgment proved completely wrong with the appearance of Octavia and the specters, but the fact that Baradin established his home here was nevertheless fortunate for Jean. If the fight gets out of hand, create as much commotion as possible, so that the entire Western Sea becomes aware. Once that happens, the ruler of the secret palace will provide assistance. Oh, now that you mention it, your Tycoon comrades mentioned something about the only daughter of the current ruler of the secret palace being your lover. Some good news would be welcome in the current situation. That's not true, but the ruler of the secret palace shows me great favor. The secret palace would have justification to retaliate if the Zippel caused damage in the Western Sea. So she will have every reason to help you, Misha. Haha, you have a cheeky side, don't you? I'd rather be cheeky if it means you won't get hurt, Misha. The blades and chains of red mana that had been restrained by Misha's shadow energy began to give way. The shadow energy holding them seemed like it would soon shatter. Murakan and Octavia had been fighting for a while now. Octavia continued to unleash her lightning bolts against Murakan, while he only defended with his breath. Murakan was also using most of his shadow energy to suppress the red abyss, so he didn't have many attack options. Whoosh! Misha skillfully spun her spear and took a step forward. I've only seen you twice, and each time, I end up in your debt, Misha. Misha shook her head. No, it's that foolish one and I who are in your debt. You are the last hope of the shadows. Jean tried to respond, but at that moment the shadow energy accumulated at the tip of Misha's spear. Jean was surprised by the magnitude of the shadow energy gathering at the tip of her spear. It was incomparably deeper and denser than the shadow energy Murakan deployed when facing Petal's manifestation in Yulian and decimating the Dark Guild magicians. It only took a second to gather such a compressed amount of shadow energy at the tip. Misha employed a variation of the shadow blade using the spear. Timar had called it the shadowless spear, but ironically, the technique required much more shadow energy than the shadow blade. I will clear the path. Shadowless was just a metaphor. It referred to how fast it was, so fast that even Timar struggled to keep up with its speed. It also referred to how it was capable of destroying everything without leaving a trace if it so desired. The technique swept away everything to the point where not even a shadow of its target remained. So stay put here. Don't follow me. Jean tilted his head. The tip of Misha's spear cut through the air. It was then that Octavia flinched and turned her head, refraining from casting spells on Murakan. Octavia had missed Jean and Misha due to the battle against Murakan and the dust cloud that rose after the island's destruction. That's why her reaction was slow. Her delayed reaction also meant that the entire squad of specters didn't react, as no specter was more skilled than Octavia. The wave of dark blades that emanated from Misha's spear struck the specter's barrier. Crack! What? A single strike from her spear shattered the center of the thick barrier as if it were an egg. Even Octavia had to gasp at the spectacle. The specters inside the barrier felt their hair stand on end. Even Jean swallowed. He thought Misha was incredibly strong when she struck Murakin after healing him. But this went far beyond his imagination. He almost felt embarrassed for thinking they could kill her while he was saving her. Even with reinforcements arriving, it was unlikely that Misha wouldn't be able to escape from this place. I guess I was exaggerating. For some reason, he felt a smile on Misha's back and asked her a question. Did you think that bunch would defeat me? The time has come for your proud tongue to be humiliated, magician. Murakin spoke as he looked down at Octavia from the sky. Then he pretended to sigh. When Octavia took a defensive stance, he immediately descended hastily towards Jean. Octavia realized then that the dark dragons had no intention of fighting them. The reason it seemed like they intended to fight them head-on had only been a smokescreen to rescue Jean. Block Murakin. Don't let him reach Jean. Run, Candle. Wahaha. And can you? Murakin sneered at Octavia. Then he withdrew the shadow energy that had been suppressing the red abyss. The blades and chains of red mana immediately flew towards Murakin, but Misha was faster. Thought you'd go for other targets when I'm right in front of you. Seems like your predecessors didn't make a note of me. The waves of blades shooting out from her spear slashed through the frenzy of swords and chains from the red abyss. She wielded the spear faster than the eyes could follow, making it appear like a dark orb. Time to go, kid. Jean kicked the ground forcefully and jumped onto Murakin's back. Once Jean safely landed on his back, Murakin shot up into the sky at full speed and flew towards the hole in the exclusion zone that he had made earlier. Chapter 262. Departing, 5 days had passed since their successful escape. Jean walked alone through the forests on the southern borders of the kingdom of Jin. Murakin had left him there 2 days ago and returned to Taiken. The entire world was in a frenzy to capture Jean. And since the kingdom of Jin was close to the allied kingdoms of Huffister, if anyone recognized him, hordes of Runcandle Guardian Knights would storm in. Of course, Jean wouldn't be stopped by mere travelers or border defense guards, but encountering them meant he had to subdue them. That's why Jean had to be cautious. This is getting slightly confusing now. Was it this way? Wandering through the forest was a tedious ordeal. Jean searched his memory to locate the secret passage used by the half-orcs with fishtails. Jean couldn't head towards established roads and was unfamiliar with the region's geography, which provided the perfect reason for getting lost. But he wasn't anxious. There were many streams flowing through various corners of the forest, so he always had water to drink. There were also plenty of animals, so he wasn't worried about a shortage of food. The next morning, Jean smiled as he caught the scent of roasted fish. There was only one tribe that roasted fish for food in such a remote place. He cautiously approached the source of the smell. Before his eyes unfolded a beautiful scene that could only be found in fairy tales. About 6 half-orcs with fishtails were roasting the fish they had just caught by the stream. They cheerfully sang songs among themselves, completely unaware that Jean was approaching. Hello! The fishtails froze upon hearing Jin's voice. They thought he was a hunter. Although such trade was strictly prohibited by international law, there were still people who hunted and sold dried fishtails at exorbitant prices. Sorry for startling you. By any chance, do you know? Ah, there it is. Jean commented as he raised his open hands and bent his knees to match their height. Fortunately, there was a familiar face in the fishtail tribe. Long time no see, Dark Flame. Oh, Jean Runcandle. We meet again? Surprised. Very. The fishtail spoke in their tribe's broken and peculiar native language. The other fishtails let out a sigh of relief when Dark Flame greeted Jean. He wasn't the only one. Who knew Jean? There were other fishtails who had received help from Jean after being stripped of their possessions by the Crimson Tigers. Furthermore, Jean was considered a hero among the fishtails after Bamel's identity, who had faced off against the Kinzalo, was revealed. The fact that both the Runcandle and Zippel collectively put a bounty of 400 million gold coins on Jin's head was also a topic of discussion among the half-orcs. How have you been? Also, good, right? You gold coins, 400 million. Dark Flame approached Jean with a concerned expression. I'm fine. Sorry to ask you once again, But do you think I could ask for your help this time too? In fact, I've been searching for you. Going, again, to the Great Desert? You know how the current situation is. Dark Flame was the leader of the group, and they gladly decided to help Jean. It seems like I'm always in debt to you. No jewels last time. Still have plenty. The reward that Jean had given the fishtails the first time he departed for La Ferosa was more than what their entire tribe could earn in several years. And the fish tails were still making good use of it. And also helped Big Snout and Big Eyes of Crimson Tiger. You return they money. No reason not to help. The fishtails called Big Snout and Big Eyes raised their thumbs. Jean felt flattered. He awkwardly smiled and joined them to eat the roasted fish. After the meal, Jean followed the fishtails to their secret cave. The cave built by the Felinoids remained a mysterious labyrinth. At the end of the cave, he could see fishtails and golden mice gathered in one place, taking a nap. Hey, fishtails, you can't bring things like that down here. Look at that. It's Jean Runcandle. What? Jean Runcandle. All the half-orcs lying on the ground immediately stood up, their eyes as wide open as they could be. But they didn't seem alarmed. Despite the appearance of the world's most wanted criminal, they surrounded Jean as if he were a fascinating creature. He got caught up in the mess between the Runcandles and Zipple. What a bleak future he has now. One of the golden mice clicked its tongue and spoke. Its name was Penny. He was the golden mouse hairdresser who had dyed Jin's hair for the compass interception operation. Jean looked into Penny's eyes. Penny, let me propose a deal that the golden mice will love. You're not asking for permission to live here, are you? That's something we would have to discuss with the leaders of all the tribes, and even though most of us like you, I don't think it would work. If you ever got caught, the giant clans would kill everyone. Jean shrugged as he watched Penny go on and on. No, I'm not making any such request. It's very simple. Disguise me. A disguise. I'm heading to the Great Desert. But since there will be plenty of half-men who might recognize me, I need an appropriate disguise. The Great Desert? Why, there's certainly something strange about this guy. It was the same last time. Why do you want to keep going to that desolate land that everyone else avoids? Do you really want to end your life there this time? Can you do it or not? It's not a very difficult task, yes. But if you get caught and it's known that we were the ones who disguised you, the Runcandles might come after. Right? Jean could swear that none of that would happen. But no one trusted him except himself. That's why Jean reached for his waist to draw his sword. Ayuk! Ugh! No, don't do this. Okay, we'll do it. Ugh! The faces of the small half-orcs immediately paled. But instead of unsheathing it, Jean untied one of the two swords he had at his waist and laid it on the ground. You've gotten on my nerves. I thought you were threatening us. We were also shocked. Yes, well, sorry for scaring you. Your compensation for the disguise will be this sword. Jean had left Bradamanti on the ground. Are you giving this to us? The golden mice's eyes gleamed as they lifted the sword to inspect it. Bradamanti was a glorious sight to behold, even for those who knew little about swords. The golden mice were obsessed with money, so it was no wonder that they were now enchanted by it. When the rumor of my death starts spreading in the world, contact the Runcandle clan and deliver this sword to them. You will be generously rewarded. It's one of the finest swords in my clan. Tell them you found it in a remote location south of the kingdom of Jin. Do you think the Runcandles will believe us? They will believe you, and even if they don't, they certainly won't harm you. In any case, the clan will be grateful that you found the sword for them. It wouldn't be good for the clan's reputation if they don't offer you a huge reward. In fact, they might even protect you. No way. Really? Of course. In return, promise me that you won't try to negotiate with any other clan just to drive up prices against the Runcandles. Once they find out that you negotiated with someone else, no matter the rewards, they'll kill all of you. Penny and the other golden mice seemed rather disappointed. They would receive a tremendous object in exchange for the disguise, but they were worried that the Runcandles might violently shake them up in the future. Jean also understood their point of view. If they refused, he planned to head to the great desert without any disguise. It's quite tempting, but our lives may depend on that object, so… Ha! Oh! Wow! The small half-orcs were startled, and everyone turned to look. Jean turned his gaze along with them to see a half-orc he had never seen before. He was small like the fishtails and golden mice. His height only reached Jin's waist. He had a cat-like face, pupils of a mysterious purple color, and fur as white as snow. He was a felinoid. Jean didn't know when he had arrived, but the felinoid was nodding towards Jean and the half-orcs. As freeloaders living in these caves, I suppose we have no choice if the owner approves. Well, look at that. Seems like you have a long life ahead of you. To think that a human would receive the blessings of a felinoid. My, what have I just witnessed? 400 million is quite something. A blessing? He just nodded, didn't he? Humans may not know about these things, but among us, the small half-orc tribes, anyone who receives the approval of the felinoids will be unconditionally welcomed by us, regardless of race or motive. I accept that deal. Jean felt equally amused by the felinoid's sudden appearance. He wanted to express his gratitude, regardless of why the felinoid had decided to help him. But the felinoid disappeared in an instant without leaving a trace, even when Jean searched for it in his mind's eye. How intriguing. But it made him feel better, as if everything would turn out well. And split the reward in half with the fishtails. Penny pondered for a moment and replied, No, 80-20, 50-50, 70-30, 60-40. That should be enough, don't be greedy. Humph, fine. When do you need the disguise? Immediately. Wait a moment. Let me fetch the tools. Penny and the other golden mice hurried away. When they returned, they carried hair dyes, wigs, and all sorts of mysterious objects that Jean had no idea what they could be used for. We'll make sure no one recognizes you on your way to the great desert. They immediately got to work. After an hour of makeup, Jean looked at himself in the mirror. He immediately chuckled. The mirror showed the face of an old man instead of his own familiar face. Nothing is impossible with the makeup skills of the golden mice. But don't touch it out of curiosity. You'll ruin the makeup. We tried to make you look like a retired expert mercenary who has been traveling around. I like it. When I become a full-fledged flag-bearer of the Runcandle clan, we'll have many matters to discuss together. It's been a pleasure seeing all of you. Now I'm off. Oh, are you leaving already? Be careful. Seriously. After a brief farewell, Jean headed through the secret passage that led to the Yuka market. The half-orcs looked at each other and shrugged. Well, what an experience. And to think that the felinoids would step forward. I agree, me too. Since ancient times, the felinoids had only approved of humans for two reasons. Either they were contracted by the cat god, or their intuition as felinoids pointed to the human as a protector of the small hybrids. Obviously, Jean was the latter. In any case, the fact that the felinoids blessed Jean Runcandle means that we will be safe too. What great fortune! What will we do once we get the money? Penny shouted, causing the golden mice and fish tails to embrace each other and laugh in celebration. Perhaps the felinoids' blessing is real, as they mentioned. The Crimson Tigers patrolling noticed me on more than 5 occasions. Yet none of them bothered to search me. Exiting the Yuka market, Jean arrived at the great desert of Mitra without any major issues. The desert, ridiculously vast and ivory-colored, and the sun above it burned fiercely with the intention of roasting everyone to death. But unlike his first visit to the desert, that desolate place no longer seemed unsettling to Jean. In fact, it felt familiar and welcoming. It was as if he had returned home, to his own land. And the desert also embraced Jean like a mother welcoming a child who had traveled far from home. Instead of dreadful mirages, a cool breeze flowed wherever Jean went. During the night, a soft moonlight covered his tent. You've arrived, Brother Jean. After 4 days, Tantel revealed himself in the same manner as the first time. Hello, Brother Tantel. We were dying to see you. Have you brought any interesting stories? La Ferosa is going to get busy once again. Tantel brandished his sword to open the gates of La Ferosa as he handed Jean a bottle of jewel liquor. He then added, "Brother Jean, are you prepared for this? The battle goddess sister and our battle king brothers are so ready to crush you in training that you might not want to step through the gate if you know what awaits you. I'll make the brothers surrender first, just like last time." Jean smiled as he took a sip of the jewel liquor. 6 months later, the golden mice went to the run candles to deliver Bradamanti and received their reward. Rumors of Jin's death began to spread throughout the world. Chapter 263. Returning to the Garden of Swords. Ouch! Ouch! My shoulder still hurts occasionally from the battle against those lunatics. Honey, why don't you come here and give Mom a shoulder massage? Talaris whined as she rubbed her left shoulder. As Jean had predicted, he joined Misha and the Spectres' battle in the Western Sea to protect their territory. 100 uninhabited islands were wiped off the map by the battle, and the surrounding sea route was completely blocked. Even 6 months after that battle, shadow energy, frost energy, and mana caused tornadoes that created treacherous winds and surges. No one witnessed the combat, but the tornado caused major nations to send investigators to the area, who later concluded that a great battle had taken place. Thanks to the presence of shadow energy, frost energy, and mana in the tornado, the investigators deduced that the Zippel's magicians, a dark dragon, and the ruler of the secret palace had fought there. The whole world wanted to know the cause and outcome of the battle. The secret palace was known as a neutral force, and people considered Sodaret a god who mostly made blood-pact contracts with pure-blooded Zippels. In fact, most of Sodaret's contractors before Jean and after Timar belonged to the Zippel clan, including Ryal Zippel himself. It was also Ryal's overwhelming magic and accomplishments that gave people the impression that Sodaret was a Zippel god. But now, with these forces fighting each other in the middle of the Western Sea without much preamble, the whole world clamored to know more. "I don't want to," said Cirrus, Talaris' daughter. "MMMH. I ended up in this state after trying to help your future boyfriend. Don't be so cold to me now. I know you're exaggerating." "I'm not exaggerating, all right? My arm hurts, and it feels like it's going to fall off. I can't even lift a spoon." Kek. Mott, the snow toad, nodded in agreement with Talaris' words. Cirrus had a reason for acting relatively indifferent to Talaris' usual self. "Mother, I still don't understand. Why did you make a statement saying that we lost?" Talaris recently gathered journalists to make an official statement about the battle in the Western Sea. She told the journalists, "I don't know why the Zippels and the Dark Dragon were hostile to each other, but I only joined the battle to protect my territory since they were fighting in my land. People seem curious about the outcome and the whereabouts of the Dark Dragon. I don't know what happened to the Dark Dragon, but the Zippels were the winners of the battle. Therefore, I hope there is no misunderstanding involving the secret palace. The cause of the battle, the combat outcome, the relationship between the Zippels and the Dark Dragon. The world's people had no access to these details before Talaris' statement because the Zippels remained silent, but Talaris revealed everything they wanted to know. Naturally, the fact that the Zippels won the battle caused the greatest impact. It was believed that the Zippels had defeated Talaris and the Dark Dragon in the absence of the Patriarch, regaining some of the dignity they had lost due to Jean, while the secret palace experienced the opposite. But it wasn't the truth. "Mother, you killed 3 specters with Misha, the Dark Dragon, and it was the Zippels who retreated when the Dark Dragon made its escape. That should be considered a defeat for someone as tremendous as me. With the Dark Dragon present, I should have killed at least 10. Moreover, if I really killed that many, Kiliak could personally attack the secret palace. After you announced the secret palace's defeat, all kinds of despicable scum are looking down on us now, Mother. The merchants of the Lutero-Magical Federation are already bullying the Western Sea merchants. And that's not all. Perhaps my sweet and dear daughter could cut off the limbs of that scum and feed them to the sharks, and tell the warriors to reinforce the protection of the people in the Western Sea. There are too many of them. You can kill them all. We made the Zippels happy, so they won't be able to complain about such insignificant matters. This is what politics is about, Cirrus. Please try to think about what your mother has to endure. I wish no one would dare to cause trouble in the Western Sea. Neither the Zippels nor the Runcandles, not even the Vermonts. Cirrus sighed and approached Talaris to massage her tired shoulders. She actually understood and respected her mother's decision, but she still struggled to suppress her frustration. You can make them feel that way in your time. It feels good. By the way, I wonder when my son-in-law will return. I hope. He's not really dead, right? We haven't heard anything from him in 6 months. All that was found was his sword. I feel anxious. That dark dragon, she's cold. I helped her, but she didn't give me any information. Instead of answering, Cirrus simply looked at the magnificently blooming snow flowers outside the window. More time passed. It was February 1799. The Runcandles and Zippels had still not revoked their arrest orders. But the news of Jin's death was no longer a rumor. It was accepted as true. The youngest son of the Runcandles, who had caused a sensation worldwide, soon faded from people's memories. The knights, magicians, and mercenaries who had been after the astronomical amount of gold were no longer searching for Jin. Journalists also stopped writing articles about him. Only tavern storytellers or minstrels reminisced about the name Jin. The world seemed fine without him. But in reality, the world was very different after Jin's disappearance. It changed since Jin revealed the Zippel clan's hypocrisies and brought the new giant power, Kinsalo, to the surface. Meanwhile, in the Runcandle clan, kuhuhu. What? Say it again? Beg for forgiveness? Repeat that, you twisted worms. I feel so thrilled every time I see people's convictions shatter. Sure. Between you and me, I'd also like to spare your lives. But what other choice do we have? This is what we do. Daytona and Hytona spoke as they looked at a group of bound individuals. After becoming full-fledged flag-bearers last summer, they earned the nickname Darlings of Hell and accumulated a series of achievements on various missions. They were especially adept at elimination tasks, especially killing Zippel extremists who started to act after the Zippel's atrocities were revealed to the world. Now, we'll just do away with one of you. We don't know who the lucky one will be, but the survivor will tell all their friends. Okay. Tell them that no matter where they hide, we will find every last one of them and crush them like roaches under our feet. But you just said you wanted to spare us too. Roaches can't talk. Roaches are not supposed to talk. All right? So if they start talking, it will prove me wrong. Won't it? The long saber and the chain sword mercilessly sliced through the bodies of the Zippel extremists. Oh right, we were supposed to spare one. We ended up killing them all. That's fine, Hytona. We can go hunting for them again. Daytona, something definitely smells fishy here. These bastards, I swear they must be receiving support from the Zippel clan. How else would they get those mana bombs to blow themselves up? The extremists were causing trouble in all regions of Huffister. Acts of terrorism, kidnappings, propaganda, and more. They were engaged in daily criminal activities against the people of Huffister. Daytona had developed a habit of laughing maniacally every time she killed someone, which only ceased when she saw enough blood. We must find evidence that the Zippel idiots are supporting these extremists, and that's our job, remember? And to do that, we should have spared one's life and followed them. That's right. I told you we can hunt more of them down. True. The last time we spared one's life, they fled and suddenly poisoned themselves to commit suicide. Sometimes I feel like they're being controlled like puppets. I feel that way too, sometimes. For now, let's return. But, Myo and Ann, do you think those bitches are waiting for orders at the clan house? Probably, I suppose. Damn, I wonder what they're going to make us stumble upon this time. I don't even want to think about it. As expected, Myo and Ann had returned to the Garden of Swords that morning. It wasn't just them. All the Runcandle flag-bearers were gathered in the Garden of Swords. The clan patriarch, Siren Runcandle, had left the Black Sea to stay at the clan house for some time. Well, look who it is. It's the Tana idiots. Look at those eyes staring at us now that they're flag-bearers. Seriously, they don't want to see the light of day anymore. Do they? Myo and confronted the Tana twins for no reason when they saw them. To be precise, they weren't really fighting. It was a one-sided verbal abuse. The Tana twins still feared their sisters. Sisters, it's been a long time. Why are you scared? Have you been talking behind our backs? No, that's not true. Ha! Come on. Don't deny it, hellish idiots. What's all this commotion? Joshua spoke quietly as he walked past them. Hello, Joshua. I just received news from Butler Hines that Father will arrive in 2 hours. We have no time to waste, so grab your ceremonial armor and get information. Understood. Everyone in the Garden of Swords prepared to greet Siren. They always lined up in elegant armor whenever he came to the garden, but it was quite rare to see the cadets also joining the formations. That's how significant this visit was. After Jin's disappearance, the Cold War between the Run Candles and Zipples worsened. It was necessary for Siren to personally encourage the members of the Run Candle clan. His mere presence was more than enough to dispel all the fears and anxieties that hung over the Run Candles and Huffister. A divine star knight. That was the presence of the world's greatest swordsman. The formation was ready in 2 hours. Luna, Joshua, Luncia, Dyphus, Ran, Vuigo, Maria, Myo, and Daytona and Hytona. The 11 flag-bearers, except for Yona, who was in Samuel, stood at the front of the formation, holding the banners of the Black Sword Shield. Behind them were the elders, executioner knights, and all the guardian knights from each division. Even the cadets stood in their ceremonial armor with uniform swords. But there wasn't a single foot soldier in sight. There weren't any in the Garden of Swords to begin with. Only the knights in formation, and the cadets were part of the Garden of Swords forces. Siren's entourage soon arrived. The Patriarch has entered the garden, Luna shouted as she stomped her foot. The knights stomped after her in a square formation. Formation, sword tombs. Formation, sword tombs. The flag-bearers and knights repeated Luna's command. Sword tombs was a ceremonial formation exclusive to the Runcandle clan. The several thousand swords stuck in the Garden of Swords were each a tomb assigned only to those who had made great contributions to the protection and prosperity of the clan. The flag-bearers and knights dispersed, each taking their position in front of a sword tomb. It seemed as if they had broken the orderly formations. But this was the epitome of Runcandle's ceremonial rites. Loyalty to the clan. We face the Patriarch of the clan. Loyalty to the clan. We face the Patriarch of the clan. The flag-bearers raised their flags as the knights saluted with their swords. Their voices were perfectly synchronized and resonated as one. Siren and Rosa surveyed the entire clan on horseback. 10 active black knights kneeled behind them. Excellent. Sheathe your swords. At Siren's command, each sword wielded by the living returned to its sheath. Only the swords stuck in the garden gleamed under the sun. Siren remained silent for some time. He felt something approaching the Garden of Swords from the sky. For now, only the Divine Star Knight could perceive the approaching presence. It was too far for Luna and the Black Knights to detect. It seems someone else wants to welcome this old man too, Siren said. Patriarch, what do you mean by that? His wife asked. Rosa, you've become dull too. A formidable force is approaching the Garden of Swords, and at a rather fast pace. Rosa's eyes widened. Soon, Luna and the Black Knights perceived what Siren mentioned. The other flag-bearers and higher-ranked knights realized it later than they did. Patriarch, may I prepare the anti-air defenses? Luna asked cautiously, but Siren shook his head. It won't be necessary, first flag-bearer. Regardless of who it is, it wouldn't be right for the entire Runcandle clan to take action. My apologies, Patriarch. Siren was right. No one on Earth could single-handedly bring down the Garden of Swords in its current state. The entire Runcandle force, including Siren, guarded the Garden of Swords. Therefore, it was unnecessary for the entire Runcandle clan to sensibly react to a single target. 10 seconds passed. Finally, a gigantic dark dragon revealed itself in the sky above the Garden of Swords. Murakan. Its shadow covered the garden, causing the knights to gasp inwardly. Despite the sudden turn of events, they had to be cautious in the presence of Siren. But what truly shocked Luna, the Black Knights, and a few talented flag-bearers was not the appearance of the Dark Dragon. What shocked them was the fact that the formidable force mentioned by Siren did not come from the Dark Dragon. Despite Muraken's enormous size, its energies had been concealed with shadow energy. Muraken descended slowly towards the Garden of Swords. A rider on its back was revealed as the dragon landed. It was the force approaching the Garden of Swords. Everyone, except for the newly recruited cadets, recognized the face of the rider. It was Jean Runcandle, now 19 years old. He saluted his father with a simple look. "Father." Provisional flag-bearer Jean Runcandle has returned after completing his training. Chapter 264. Embers 1. Those gathered in the Garden of Swords trembled at his words as if a lightning bolt had struck in front of their noses. Their eyes widened at the audacious wanted man before them. Everyone with their eyes fixed on Jean, including the elders and pure-blooded Runcandles, had not witnessed a more shocking moment in their lives. How could he be so bold? Here he was, voluntarily returning to the place of his execution despite the arrest warrant issued by the two largest clans in the world. How dare he? Does he dare to mock this place? Arrest him right now. All the elders and his brothers wanted to give the order. Under most circumstances, they surely would have already done so. But their instincts told them to keep their mouths shut, not to speak in front of Siren. Even Rosa had to calm her startled heart. She looked at her husband for a reaction. And, obviously, she hoped that Siren would stab Jean, just as all the other pure-blooded Runcandles thought he would. Jean dismounted from Muraken's back, stretched, and looked towards Siren. Siren remained still and met the gaze of his youngest son. A dreadful silence followed, so quiet that no one dared to breathe aloud. No one could guess what father and son were thinking. Jin's eyes gleamed with their own light, as if to say there was nothing on earth he feared. In contrast, Siren's eyes were filled with concern and highlighted the wrinkles around them. His gaze concealed the deep emotional feeling that the giant named Siren felt for the first time in his life. The heart of a father beholding his adult son. The joy that his son had become the most special and powerful man in the world, and that he was finally standing before him as a man. And the faith that it wasn't an illusion born from parental expectations. He had sired 13 children, and Luna was the only one he had embraced in pure ecstasy. But Luna went against his wishes and yielded the seat of patriarch. After Luna, he regarded the other 11 as pebbles on the road. But when Jean began revealing his talents, he saw a spark in him. Now the spark had turned into an uncontrollable fire, a great blaze that flew towards the Garden of Swords to engulf it entirely, to sweep this sacred place of swordsmen completely in its flames, for this warm grave of swords to ignite its formidable flames once more. I am proud. Siren's brief but intense feeling did not reach anyone's ears, including Jin's. Several seconds passed. Jean fell into a mysterious sensation, just like Siren. There were thousands of swordsmen and 11 of his brothers there, but it felt as if he was alone with his father. Only his father, Siren Runcandle, among all those gathered there. He was the only one worthy of defeating him. Of course, many present were stronger than Jean. Luna, Rosa, the Black Knights. However, they were people Jean was destined to surpass someday. But the same couldn't be said of his father. Surpassing his father required the determination to overcome his own destiny. I will surpass myself over and over to surpass you, father. Both father and son made a comment to themselves. Siren was the first to move. After dismounting his horse, he unsheathed his sword. It was the same sword Jean had chosen in the selection ceremony in both his past and present lives. The pale blade of Balasada, the sword of the first patriarch, Timar Runcandle, reflected the sun. Siren then raised his strength, causing all the cadets to immediately fall to the ground. All their legs gave way. Siren's strength was impossible for the cadets to resist. Low-level Guardian Knights trembled as they struggled to maintain their stance, and even mid-level Knights exerted great effort to fight against the force. Falling to the ground before Siren was a disgrace only allowed for young cadets. Rosa, the elders, high-ranking Guardian Knights, Execution Knights, Black Knights, and all the flag-bearers except the Tana twins showed no change in expression. Meanwhile, Jean gathered all his energy and prepared to respond to the attack. Here it comes. My father's sword is descending. I can withstand a single strike from my father. It was the confidence he had gained from his first visit to La Ferosa. Indeed, Jean realized he could block a strike from Vaughn, the battle god, after 90,000 deaths, and he even demonstrated it against Vanessa Olsen, a retired Black Knight. But Siren chose a very different move from the usual. It wasn't a simple horizontal or vertical cut. This strike carried the weight of all the achievements of a demigod named Siren Runcandle. The sword, gradually, descended in such a way that even a 3-year-old child could notice its movement. Its incremental descent made it seem like anyone could dodge it with just a light step. Continued to fall towards Jean. No sound of slicing through the air was heard. Balasada leaned forward like a frigate sinking gently into the sea. But who could say that the sword was slow? One didn't need to be a martial arts master to conjure up the only phrase that could fully describe the movement Siren was making. Divine strike. Something only possible with the powers of a deity. An incredible technique that was far beyond the comprehension of men and the laws of nature. Jean took a deep breath as Balasada approached within an arm's length of him. He was sweating all over. Every muscle fiber in his body was completely contracted. His blood and bones hardened with all the aura he held within. It would be impossible to face this gradually but incredibly variable technique without raising all his energies. The pale blade of Sigmund left its sheath. A dense lightning energy flowed over the blade. Jean held the sword in a two-handed stance and raised it, diagonally to block Balasada. In a matter of seconds, the swords would finally clash. Everyone gathered in the Garden of Swords thought a million things as the collision approached. Luna worried that Jean might not be able to withstand the attack. Father is convinced that the brat can withstand his strike. Meanwhile, Joshua clenched his teeth anxiously. Jean had become an enemy as strong as him. Joshua believed that Jean would undoubtedly survive and drive the sword into his neck. Most of his brothers shared Joshua's opinion. He had simply been the younger brother, just a provisional flag-bearer, a condemned criminal who couldn't escape his sentence. But now, he had returned to join the race for the throne of swords and angrily eyed his opportunity to pass the final rite of passage. If he blocks this sword, everything he has caused so far will be taken much less seriously. Siren, must you throw the Runcandles into the flames of chaos for your own pleasure? Rosa Runcandle's eyes narrowed. She also cherished her youngest son, whom she had given birth to with great effort, to the point where she considered him the best candidate to succeed Joshua as the patriarch. If only he hadn't caused so many problems. No, even if he had deviated from the clan by wielding shadow energy and magic, if he hadn't revealed himself to the public of his own accord, she would have done everything in her power to ensure he became Joshua's successor. But now that his deviations had been revealed to the entire world, they had to dismiss Jean, if only for the sake of the clan. That's what Rosa believed. Still, I cannot go against the Patriarch's decision. The will of Patriarch Runcandle must be executed with absolute authority, and it must always remain so. To question the current Patriarch's decision and turn the situation around could only mean one thing. It meant that Joshua's decision could always be overturned by someone else after becoming Patriarch. It undermined the Patriarch's absolute rule. That's why she wanted to make Joshua the Patriarch as soon as possible. Rosa saw him as the ideal candidate to safeguard this gigantic sandcastle that was the Runcandle clan. In fact, she believed that no one could replace Joshua. We have too many enemies. The future of the Runcandle clan is bleak, and we have nowhere to run. So, why do we try to return to the past? Rosa bit her lower lip. And at that precise moment, the swords of Balasada and Sigmund met. Steel met steel, emitting an extremely faint sound like an egg forming a small crack. Siren did not retract his sword upon completing his movement. Meanwhile, Jean looked at him with eyes completely bloodshot from the effort. Blood streamed from his lips and ears. The force within Balasada transferred to Jin's body like convection and turned his strengths upside down. It was as if a tsunami surged through his veins. His bones and internal organs screamed as if they were being torn apart. But Jin stood firm. Siren's strength soon formed a complete circle within Jin's body and spread through the ground, which trembled and gave way as if someone had forcefully opened its mouth. An immensely bright light gushed out of the hole in the ground like an oil well. It was the aura of Siren contained within Balasada. The desperate lightning sparks that flickered through the furious aura were evidence of the fierceness with which Jin had fought against his father's sword. A testament that the youngest son of the Runcandles had withstood the sword that demanded great sacrifice from anyone gathered here to face it. The surging waves of aura that had been gushing like a waterfall began to diminish. Siren's gaze remained fixed on his son, who still stood, and on the dark dragon that watched him from behind. Indeed, an impeccable guardian dragon, thought Siren. Damn, what a terrible father, thought Muraken. Jin coughed up a large amount of crimson blood and briefly lost his balance. At that precise moment, everyone gasped. Those who mostly adored Jin were hostile towards him, or were merely curious about him. If he fell, it would be the end. Jin's name would never be erased from the list of the Runcandle clans eliminated. Arg! Jin shouted after plunging his sword into the ground to maintain balance. Jin pounded his chest with his fists like a madman and kept fighting. His desperate cry of never accepting any mediocrity shook the entire garden of swords. Finally, Jin stood up and faced Siren once again. He was a mess, but it was clear that he clung to his consciousness. Upon seeing him, Siren briefly showed a faint smile for the first time. It was nothing more than a fleeting smile, but everyone near him saw it clearly. The smile meant 1,000 things. The magical swordsman named Jin had just passed the final requirement to enter the Garden of Swords. And it was Siren himself who proclaimed it. Luna was so overwhelmed with emotion that she almost burst into tears, and even those who were not close to Jin felt relieved. Siren spoke with a dry voice after his smile faded. Take Jin Runcandle, the flag-bearer, to the healers. We will begin his formal initiation as a flag-bearer as soon as he regains consciousness. It was at the end of these words that Jin collapsed. Chapter 265. Embers 2. Jin was having a nightmare. A black monster with tentacles was crushing his body. It slapped its tentacles against his face and wouldn't let go. The terrible sensation made Jin groan. Ugh! He managed to open his eyes and sit up. Jin soon discovered who had caused the nightmare. Meow meow. Muraken had pounced on him and was kneading his face with its paws. Why does this feel familiar? Let go of me. Come on. He gently pushed Muraken away and checked his body. Nothing seemed broken. The Runcandle healers were quite talented, but it was actually because he was one of the few who could regain consciousness without much trouble after receiving Siren's sword strike. Jin knew it very well. I became immensely strong, thanks to my brothers. Without the intensive training in La Ferosa, I wouldn't have even dreamed of taking that sword. He looked around. It was a familiar sight because this was the same room he had used as a cadet. He sensed movement. Are you awake, young master? It was Gilly. She had returned to the Garden of Swords just after Jin withstood Siren's strike and was now by his side, as she had always been during his cadet years. Gilly, it's been a long time, young master. Gilly gave him a warm smile. Finally, they were together again after being separated for a year and 2 months. Since leaving La Ferosa, Jin had only reunited with Misha and Muraken. I missed you. I missed you too. And you don't know how much your companions missed you as well, young master. Jin nodded and looked at Gilly's wrists. It wasn't there. The iron pin that had been placed to suppress his powers was no longer there. The Runcandle medical staff had removed it as soon as he returned to the clan. Gilly felt embarrassed and scratched the back of her neck when she caught his gaze. Thank you for everything, Gilly. It's nothing. All Runcandle caretakers go through that anyway. I had an easy life as the provisional flag-bearer's caretaker thanks to you, young master. Gilly looked at Jin with solemn eyes. Then she kneeled down and bowed her head. Knight Gilly McLaurin pledges loyalty to the 12th flag-bearer of the Runcandle clan, Sir Jin Runcandle, as his caretaker. It is an honor to serve you again, young master. That made Jean think of many things. In his past life, Gilly had been exiled with her powers sealed because of him. But now he had become a flag-bearer and she was a caretaker of a flag-bearer. An overwhelming emotion welled up within him. I won't let anyone ruin Gilly's life. Jean smiled after suppressing his emotions. The fact that you're my caretaker is a great honor for me too, Gilly. I feel uncomfortable, so please rise. Yes, young master. Puff. Muraken transformed into his human form and helped Gilly to her feet. I have no idea why our dear Strawberry Shortcake is so loyal to this kid. He's not even adorable. Dear Strawberry Shortcake, didn't you miss me, the great Muraken? Oh, what a disgrace. This can't be happening. The boy receives all the love there is. But I'm just a passing dragon. Is that it? Sir Muraken, don't be so hard on yourself. Of course, I missed you too. Then why are you so cold to me? But we were all together in Taiken until a week ago. So what you're saying, Strawberry Shortcake, is that you didn't miss me as much because we've only been apart for a week. Is that what you're saying? That sums it up quite well. Muraken had nothing more to say. He also realized that being apart for a week wasn't a big problem to worry about. Muraken and Gilly still weren't dating. Muraken cleared his throat. But still, Jean interrupted. Hey, come on. She hasn't done anything. Stop bothering Strawberry Shortcake, no Gilly with those things. Besides, this isn't Taiken, okay? Don't transform like that. You can't do that here. You should be Butterfly Runcandle, like in my cadet days. What are you talking about, brat? Everyone knows I'm your guardian dragon. Are you saying I should hide my identity and live as a cat? Actually, yes. Anyway, Gilly, how long have I been unconscious? About 3 hours, young master. Okay, 3 hours. What? Jean jumped to his feet and looked outside. It was around noon when they had taken formations for Siren. The afternoon sun still shone in the Garden of Swords. Had he regained consciousness from that wound in just 3 hours? Jean remembered what Boris, the 5th Battle King, said last year while training in La Ferosa. He's a vampire. That's what he is. He's sucking blood cubes from the sister of the battle god. My goodness. Jean received blood transfusions from Vaughn, the battle goddess, this time as well, not just once, but twice. Vaughn weakened slightly every time she donated blood because she was performing something close to a miracle. But it fortified Jin's blessed body and illuminated heart. That's why it took Jean only 3 hours to regain consciousness after withstanding Siren's strike. The Garden of Swords will be surprised when they learn that you've already regained consciousness. The head of the medical staff seemed to expect it somehow, but most people said it would take at least 3 days for you to wake up, young master. And the appointment ceremony for the Knight Flag-bearer? Since it was a direct order from the Patriarch, it's likely to be held today. I think you should go see the Patriarch, young master. Gilly opened her wardrobe. She had prepared the ceremonial uniform of the Runcandle flag-bearer. The black coat had elegant designs stitched with golden threads. Tears welled up in her eyes as she took out the coat and handed it to him. Oh wow, please forgive my foolishness. It's just that I got emotional seeing you finally putting it on. Young master, good luck at today's ceremony. Oh, and is there anything I can do for you? Bake a strawberry cake for Muraken. He's been singing songs about how much he wanted one all the way here. Understood. Jean washed his face, brushed his hair, straightened his collar, and stepped out into the hallway. Once there, he felt everyone's gaze on him. The servants passing through the halls, the guardian knights, even the cadets. None dared to look at him brazenly, but they all cast curious glances his way. And right at that moment, some of his siblings passed by. Long time no see. Sisters Myo and Anne. They were passing by Jin's room on their way to deliver the flag-bearing mission reports to Rosa. They immediately stopped and turned their heads. I wonder how sarcastic they'll be now. Or maybe they won't despise me as much as before. They looked at Jean but remained silent for a while. They even blinked as if witnessing something they shouldn't. Has he awakened? After receiving that strike from Father? Am I seeing things correctly now? Their gazes went back and forth between Jean several times to confirm what they saw. Didn't Take them long to realize that Jean was real, obviously. You? No, it doesn't matter. Come on, En. Myo was the first to speak. She frowned, but it seemed like she didn't want to talk to Jean. Myo? En was startled by her reaction. She was also surprised to see Jean, but she thought they might as well despise him since they had encountered each other. They were now legitimate contenders in the ranking war, and thought there was no chance they would lose against him. Although Jean had become stronger, there were many ways to win in the ranking war besides individual combat. We can't just leave after encountering this brat who was a criminal this morning and wearing the flag-bearer's coat. Let's go. Let's beat him up real dash. I said we're leaving. Young Master Jean, someone roared right after Myo spoke. The voice carried a welcoming tone with notes of mockery and strong shades of flattery. That mysteriously complex voice could only belong to Emma Nieltro, the caretaker of the Tana twins. Beside her were the Tana twins, their mouths agape with expressions of astonishment on their faces. They too were taken aback by Jin's recovery. We heard from the servants that you had awakened, young master. We came as soon as we found out. How have you been, young master? I'm so glad to see you safe and, well, what am I saying? I suppose I should start addressing you as the 12th flag-bearer, no longer as young master, right? She showed a very servile and sly attitude, rubbing her hands greedily and constantly bowing while speaking. Oh, my! Emma Nieltro, have you gone crazy? How dare you interrupt the conversation of the flag-bearers without being called? Who said you could act like that? And said with disdain in her voice. Oh, I apologize, young lady Anne. In any case, 12th flag-bearer Jean, you've become a great person. I always knew you would become an esteemed figure. Emma didn't hesitate for a second, young master. After saying that, Emma nudged the Tana twins from the sides. She was signaling them to greet Jean. Jean, I'm glad to see you. How have you been? How are you? You withstood father's sword strike. You have no idea how shocked everyone was. Isn't that right, Haitona? Absolutely, Daytona. It was amazing, right? Seeing the Tana twins babble with exaggerated movements made Jean chuckle. On the other hand, Emma's keen judgment sent shivers down his spine. Emma seems to believe that someday I'll become the patriarch. Even if that doesn't happen, I bet she'd love to believe it since the Tana twins have no one else to rely on. Her plan must be to improve the future of the Tana twins by ensnaring me. She used to blatantly observe Jean at Stormcastle, and he had warned her about her behavior. Back then, Emma used to desperately hope that Jean would lag behind the Tana twins, even when showering him with constant praise. She intended to order the Tana twins to crush Jean or recruit him as their subordinate if Jean ever fell behind the Tana twins. But now it was different. Emma had accepted the fact that the Tana twins never had a chance at the patriarchate. Therefore, she began seeking people who could help them survive the ranking war. The talented purebloods didn't care about the Tana twins, while Myo and En tormented them daily. Every day was a series of frustrations for Emma, but Jean returned to them as a shining star with undeniable strength. Seems like that Fox Myo is somewhat smarter than the idiot En. She knows she can't mess with young Master Jean anymore. Haha. Bitches. How does it feel to be humiliated by me, thanks to young Master Jean? Although it wasn't anything too humiliating, the fact that Emma had interrupted Myo and Anne's speech under Jin's gaze was already a tremendous victory for her. If she could, Emma would have killed Myo and Anne for tormenting the Tana twins all this time. I swear all my loyalty to you. So help me and cooperate, young Master Jean. And of course, Jean had already read Emma's mind. Well, I'll give you points for being the first one from the Garden of Swords to approach me and try to align with me. I'll help you with your little revenge, Emma. Besides, I'll have many uses for the Tana twins anyway. Jean had to hold back his laughter. Have you all gone crazy? Hey you, Emma. Who do you think you are? Didn't I just ask you a question? I asked, who said you? My dear sister, and you're being harsh. She overstepped a bit, but please don't forget that Emma is the caretaker of the 10th and 11th flag-bearers. She has served the clan for a long time. There are many eyes watching us right now, so I don't think you should scold her that much. Anne's eyes widened when Jean interrupted her. Chapter 266. Embers, 3. Anne was about to raise her hand to slap Jean, but Myo grabbed her by the shoulder. "And, I told you we're leaving." Her tone conveyed an order. Anna understood very well that going against Myo's word in such situations would do her no good. The two seemed so close that they ignored the ranks between them, but the chain of command was quite clear between the two. "Tisk!" Anna quickly stepped back. "Myo seems to be smarter than I expected. Hitting Jean or trying to pick a fight with him right now would be foolish." The fact that both of them understood little about Jin's abilities was a problem in itself, but above all, Siren had declared the immediate start of the flag-bearer appointment ceremony following Jin's recovery. What would happen if Jean got injured or delayed? It would be disobedience to Siren's orders. In fact, in the past, Myo and Anne had once sent Jean on an excessive mission intended to kill him just before Siren offered the banquet, so they had more reasons to monitor his actions. Myo gritted her teeth. She was actually angrier than Anna, but her resolution to stay out of Jin's cunning plans was stronger. "I can't say I congratulate you. Go on and go to father." "I will. See you, sisters. And as for you, Emma Nieltro, it's better if you refrain from doing things you'll regret. This will be the first and last warning." Myo and Anne passed by Jean and continued walking. The Tana twins dropped jaws lowered even more. Are those psychopaths really struggling to deal with Jean? What did I just witness? It was followed by Emma's struggle to contain the laughter that erupted like fireworks from the depths of her heart. "Brothers, at this rate, your jaws might fall off." "Oh right, we'll close them." "Thank you." The Tana twins took turns hugging Jean after a moment of hesitation. Both of them understood that Myo and Anne had been humiliated thanks to Jean, and that was something they had only dreamed of experiencing. "And how have you been, brothers?" Jean asked, gently pushing the Tana twins away from him. "This reminds me of the day I cut them in the mirages in the Great Desert." Although he didn't want to admit it, Jean felt something akin to brotherhood with them. Although it was nothing compared to what he shared with Luna and Yona, it was probably all those years they spent together at Stormcastle, despite all their problems back then. It seemed quite adorable to Jean how they attentively watched his reaction. "Well, we've been fine, except for the fact that Myo and Anne have been giving us a hard time. I thought we wouldn't see you alive again, Jean. I'm so glad." "Me too." "Really? I'm not as glad to see you." Jin's cold response made the Tana twins shrink and hunch their shoulders. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. We must have rushed ahead." Jean had a reason to say this. "But let's try to get along little by little from now on. It's not like I hate both of you." He needed to get the message across to Emma. No matter who the target was, she must never try to use them without his permission. And he encouraged her to show clearer signs of loyalty. Emma, being the cunning woman she was, immediately tilted her head in acknowledgement of Jin's intentions. On the other hand, the Tana twins felt moved by the way Jean mentioned getting along and nodded enthusiastically. "Now we bid farewell, 12th flag-bearer, sir. You can still call me Young Master Jean, Emma." "All right, Young Master Jean. Please pay me a visit if you ever crave a good tea. I'll have a precious tea prepared for you that can't be found outside the Garden of Swords." She was inviting him to visit to gain insider information about the clan. Her offer pleased Jean. He looked Emma in the eyes. "I suppose I'll come in a few days. I hope you have some tea leaves that satisfy my taste." Emma and the Tana twins departed, and the servants lurking nearby dispersed to their respective places as well. The Guardian Knights saluted Jean and walked away. Now that Jean was a flag-bearer, his rank was officially higher than that of ordinary Guardian Knights. Siren's office was in the main building, but Jean planned to stop by another place before heading to the main building, the underground sacred chambers of the innermost cloister of the Garden of Swords. The crypts. Paying my respects to the heroes who have safeguarded the Runcandle clan is the first thing I must do before meeting with Father. Of course, he truly believed in this, but there were two main reasons why he decided to descend to the crypts first. Firstly, Siren didn't order him to go directly to him. Secondly, Not a single person among his siblings had gone down to the crypts right after completing their lives as provisional flag-bearers. The second reason was the key point. The mere fact that I'm heading to the crypts before anything else could make some elders favorably disposed towards me. Many of the elders considered ceremonial conduct of utmost importance and were sensitive to history and tradition. For now, the Garden of Swords was the bastion of Jin's enemies. To defeat Joshua in the throne, Jin needed friendly forces, and many of them. This simple action could please some of the elders. Therefore, there was no reason not to visit the crypts. I didn't have access to the crypts as a cadet, but now things had changed. More eyes followed Jin as he walked out of the hallway and headed towards the inner cloister. But he didn't cross paths with any more of his siblings and reached the crypts without much trouble. Stone tombs filled the completely dark underground mausoleum. That reminds me, out of all these tombs, Timar's isn't here. A pact. The Runcandles made a humiliating pact against the Zipples after Timar Runcandle's death. The demands were simple. Never venerate the ancestors of sword-wielding magicians and never wield magic again. That's why the Zipples always told Jin how he had broken the pact. I've seen them keep talking about breaking the pact. But the Zipples still haven't done anything to the Runcandles even after my story was revealed to the world. What that implied was clear. They felt uncomfortable striking the Runcandles, and there was only one reason behind it. Siren Runcandle. The presence of the Soul Knight of Genesis, or Divine Star Knight, in the world. Without him, the Zipples would never fear waging a war against the Runcandles. In other words, as long as Siren was present, the Zipples would probably maintain their current attitude. I was quite worried that they might immediately initiate a large-scale war. But now, it's clear. There won't be any full-blown war soon. With these thoughts in mind, he was paying his respects to the stone tombs. Then he felt movement outside the crypts. Someone had just entered the crypts. "Hello, father." It was Siren. He had been sitting in his office, but when he felt Jin regain consciousness, he also descended to the crypts to speak with his son. Outside the crypts, the flag-bearers and guardian knights were already preparing the appointment ceremony by order of Siren. What a disappointment. That was the first thing Siren said. Disappointment. Jin had heard this word countless times in his past life, but this was the first time he heard it in his current life. But Siren didn't seem to want to reprimand Jin. It was the kind of light-hearted joke that any father and son would exchange. Thanks to the light-hearted tone, Jin felt relieved and managed to respond. "Is it because I woke up too late? What I gave you before was your last chance to prove your worth to everyone. You should have used everything you had to create a better result." But what Siren said wasn't necessarily true. After Jin withstood the sword strike, reflecting all of Siren's mastery as a swordsman, everyone in the Garden of Swords was impressed beyond their expectations. However, Siren thought it wasn't enough. To be precise, it wasn't Jin's training or growth that he was reproaching, since he himself wasn't superior to Jin in his own 19 years. "Do you think I should have used shadow energy?" Jin hadn't used a single trace of shadow energy when receiving Siren's attack. He only used his aura and the energy of the legend's lightning. If he had used shadow energy, the results would have been very different. Of course, he would still fall short of stopping and launching a counterattack against Siren's movement, but he certainly wouldn't have fainted because of it. So, what was the reason he refrained from using shadow energy? Jin simply didn't want to show all his cards to his enemies from the start. Right now, except for Luna, everyone is my enemy. Those enemies knew that Jin was the contractor of Sodaret and a magical swordsman wielding tremendous power beyond his age. But they didn't know exactly how strong Jin really was. And as in most battles, one gained more advantage with every card the enemy didn't know. That's why my father's opinion is that I should have also used the power of shadows, so I could have impressed them with a more dominant display. Siren didn't answer. He merely kept his eyes closed in front of the stone tombs. A long silence followed. Jin didn't find the silence uncomfortable. He only found it interesting that his father didn't reprimand him or give him orders. Instead, he gave him his opinion. That's how much his father respected his decision as well. "My dear youngest son." "Yes, father?" Appointing you as a flag-bearer is a great loss for the Run Candles. Jean tilted his head instead of responding. I will watch to see if you can make up for that loss. I will keep that in mind, Jean said. As for me, Siren spoke as he turned around. There isn't much time left. The knighthood appointment ceremony will begin in an hour, so be present by then. Siren exited the crypts before Jean could say anything. He could only think of one thing as he watched his father walk away. Doesn't father have much time left? What does that mean? Is it an illness? Those things couldn't harm the body of a divine star knight. Old age? That didn't make sense for Siren at this moment. His mind went blank. It wasn't a passing phrase. But since Siren didn't seem to want to discuss it in detail, it meant Jean couldn't inquire further about it. Although Jean didn't know the reason why Siren didn't have much time left, he knew what his father had meant. To become patriarch before my father's time runs out. And he also told me that he wouldn't give me any more chances or direct help. His father's back as he left the crypt seemed lonely for some reason. It was the first time Jean felt something like that for Siren, something that not even his siblings had felt yet. The only ones who had felt something like that for Siren were the previous generation of Black Knights who fought alongside him, and Rosa in her youth. Jean clarified many of his thoughts while in the crypts. Before leaving, he created embers with mana and lit the candles inside the crypts. Then he headed to the Gallery of Flagbearers. Chapter 267. Flagbearer Ceremony. The Gallery of Flagbearers was located in a huge corridor situated at the corner of the Garden of Swords. It was the longest building owned by the Run Candles. Its 2 walls were filled with the names of all the Run Candle flagbearers in history. Any flag-bearer who had achieved particularly notable accomplishments was honored with a portrait. Jean walked through the gallery, slowly reading the names on the wall. Somehow it made him smile. Surprisingly, he could remember most of the flag-bearers from the past 1,000 years. I lost count of all the books about flag-bearers I read in my past life. Now, his own name would be engraved at the end of the long list of names that stretched like the Milky Way. Trud, trud. He could feel a tremendous force as he approached the other end of the gallery. It was the force emanating from Siren, Rosa, the 11 flag-bearers, and 100 knights. Jean felt excited like a little child, at least for that moment. He had been the only pure-blooded Run Candle in the clan's 1,000-year history to fail in his attempt to become a clan flag-bearer. On top of that, the clan denied him everything and exiled him, erasing all his records. But now he walked proudly through this hallway. It took him a total of 47 years. 28 years of his past life and 19 years of his current life. Tears almost welled up in his eyes. The fact that he had finally reached the place where he belonged, only after a lifelong journey, made him tremble with ecstasy. Jean composed himself, maintaining a serene expression and breathing as he reached the end of the gallery. Siren and Rosa stood in the center of the gallery's end, while 11 of his siblings stood before them in their ceremonial uniforms. 100 knights stood in a circle. Jean could also see the clan scribes and painters scrutinizing the scene with serious faces. Rosa spoke first. 12th flag-bearer Jean Run Candle. Step forward. She wore a slight smile of pride, but Jean knew very well that her smile wasn't genuine. Mother is the greatest enemy of all. Right in front of her was his elder brother, Joshua Run Candle. Rosa was the foundation of all his power. Suddenly, Jean felt curious. How much does Mother know? The fact that Joshua had attempted to curse him, that he kept trying to steal his contract, that he had a person called the Seer who wielded mysterious and dark powers capable of even creating copies of Joshua. Could Rosa Run Candle really be unaware of such things? Mother is not so naive at all. Perhaps the 2 days of sadness after I was exiled from the clan could have been her fault for the curse. Rosa wouldn't only be aware of Joshua's actions. She might well have been the mastermind behind some of them. It was despicable and repugnant. But if Rosa was indeed behind the curse, then it would only mean that she considered it the best path for the Run Candle clan. That's how this terrible clan operated. Each member only did what benefited the clan, in their own way. There was no room for petty feelings like affection for relatives in their course of action. even if such actions involved commissioning a curse to harm a baby, or things much more horrible than that. If it was done for the benefit of the clan and it achieved its effect, no issues were raised. I fought even more desperately because of Mother and Joshua's decisions. So I would say, you did well, Mother. Things would have been different if Jean hadn't witnessed the delusion of the blade when he arrived at his cradle. Jean wouldn't be as strong as he was now. Revenge and contempt sometimes served as one of the greatest motivators in life. Although this was something Jean was still unaware of, Rosa still saw Jean as the next patriarch to succeed Joshua. This decision was also part of Rosa's plans for the Runcandle clan. Of course, you and Joshua will have to pay for what you did since I've returned, Mother. Just as I've decided to respect your repugnant decision, Mother, it's time for you to respect mine. It didn't matter if Rosa was directly involved in the curse or not. It mattered little to Jean. In any case, he would never give up on placing Joshua on the patriarch's throne. Jean returned the smile to Rosa. He took a step forward and stood before her in Siren. The flag-bearers immediately drew their swords and raised them in the air. The flag-bearers lined up on both sides of him and created a path. Luna, Joshua, Luncia, Dyphus, Ran, Vuigo, Mary, Myo, and the Tana twins. The 11 siblings hid their feelings toward Jean as they gazed at him. You will become the king of this terrible clan. I will make sure of it. In the end, everything will follow the course of the prophecy, Jean. Luna and Joshua. A magical swordsman. Huh? I had no idea he would grow to be someone capable of shaking the Runcandles to their core. I hoped he would challenge me someday. But now, it might be me who challenges him. Dyphus and Mary. There was a reason Joshua was always sensitive to him. Myo and Anne are going to be in a tight spot now. Ran and Vuigo. Damn it. We'll need Joshua's help to crush him now. I knew it. We should have killed him back then. Myo and Anne. But Jean is the 12th flag-bearer. Does that mean his official rank is below ours? He won't intimidate us like Myo and Anne, right? I guess we should follow Emma's words and try to get on his good side for now. The Tana twins. Jean felt like he could read all their thoughts except for one person. Luncia. He really couldn't tell what Luncia was thinking day by day. She was the only sister Luna had a hard time dealing with. But in reality, Luncia's thoughts consisted of only 3 words. This is troublesome. Luncia found it difficult to imagine the bloodshed that would occur in the clan now that Jean had returned. At best, she hoped Jean would lead a peaceful life like hers, if that was even possible. I wonder how Yona is doing. I guess she would have made a big fuss after my disappearance. She was the only sister not present at that moment. As she gazed at the lion's den, she felt reassured knowing that Yona was on her side. Siren looked Jean in the eyes. Step forward. Jean slowly entered the path created by the flag-bearers' swords. A pair of swords fell every time Jean passed, as if a door closed behind him. At the end of the path, Luna lowered her sword alone. All the flag-bearers lowered their swords and maintained their posture. This time, the knights standing in a circle raised their swords simultaneously. Jean Runcandle has finally earned the right to raise the clan's flag wherever he goes. As the 12th flag-bearer of the clan, Jean Runcandle will now bear the mission and privileges of his title. However, remember that everything can be taken away from you when you bring dishonor to the clan. I, Jean Runcandle, the 12th flag-bearer, will keep that in mind. Go and place the swords of the flag-bearers and the knights in their correct positions. This was the most important part of the flag-bearer appointment ceremony. Raising the lowered swords of the flag-bearers and lowering the raised swords of the guardian knights. Jean had to strike the flag-bearers' swords upward and bring down the guardian knight's swords with his own sword. Becoming a flag-bearer, even if he failed, would tarnish the beginning of his life as a flag-bearer with failure. And for the sake of the ceremony, it was customary for the siblings to receive the incoming flag-bearer's strike without much resistance. Jean turned around and slowly unsheathed the signet. The first sword he had to raise was Luna's Crantle. For some reason, the massive axe sword seemed to have a lot of strength. Luna wore a playful smile as she played a small prank on him. She decided to play a prank because she knew that Jean would obviously be able to lift the crantle despite her pressing it with force. Clang! A loud explosive sound resonated as Jean struck his sword against the Sigmund. Luna calmed her startled heart as she raised the sword. Come on. You didn't have to hit it so hard. My wrists hurt, you know? The crantle was raised, and Jean returned the smile to Luna as he passed by her. This dissuaded any other siblings from attempting to break the tradition. Mio and Anne had clearly planned to sabotage him, and even Mary had been so eager to feel Jin's strength that she was willing to break the tradition. The remaining 10 swords didn't need to be struck with force. They were gently raised to their correct positions. Now it was time to bring down the 100 swords of the Guardian Knights. They filled the entire circle with high-level Guardian Knights. The custom of letting the new flag-bearer gently move their swords did not apply to the Guardian Knights. Instead, the level of the Guardian Knights typically reflected the level of the flag-bearer. In the Tawna twins' case, more than half of the Guardian Knights were low-level knights, which was only slightly below the average of most run candle flag-bearers. The Guardian Knights gripped their swords with all their strength and maintained a motionless posture. Jean had to lower 100 of those swords. But Jean had already passed the Garmin test on his first visit to La Ferosa. This wouldn't be a major issue for him. Ching! Clang! Bam! Each strike of Jin's sword embedded the Guardian Knights' swords into the ground. The Guardian Knights received the strikes without much surprise on their faces. I guess they're not surprised anymore. But contrary to what Jean thought, the Guardian Knights were truly surprised by him. Some struggled to withstand the sword strike, finding it hard to believe that Jean was just a teenager. A little over 10 minutes passed until the flag-bearer's swords were once again in the air, and the Guardian Knight's swords were fully lowered. When Jean returned after completing the ceremony, Rosa smiled satisfied. We conclude the appointment ceremony of the flag-bearers. Jean Runcandle, you may now traverse the gallery of flag-bearers and proceed to the Council of Elders to face the clan elders. The ceremony had ended. Jean was officially the 12th flag-bearer of the Runcandle clan and had earned the right to meet with the elders as a flag-bearer. Meeting with the elders as a flag-bearer was entirely different from meeting with a cadet or a provisional flag-bearer. This was because the elders were responsible for instructing Runcandle flag-bearers on the clan's secret techniques and final moves. I'm sure things will get ugly in there because Mother and Joshua will instruct the elders. I would be grateful and never forget to reward them if only one of them would volunteer to instruct me. Chapter 268. Reliable but Unwelcome Flag-Bearer 1. The Council of Elders was quite similar to the Supreme Court of the Vermont Empire. There were 3 huge and imposing wooden podiums in the center of the Grand Council Hall. On each podium were the Chief Elder, the Vice Chief Elder, and the Council Secretary. All the other elders sat behind them in an arched formation. The 3 individuals on the podium were respectively the leaders of the organizations affiliated with the Council of Elders: the Black Sword Guild, the Lawkeepers, and the People's Guard. They were the pillars of the Council of Elders. The Lawkeepers and the People's Guard were literally responsible for ensuring compliance with the Runcandle clan's rules and the protection of the people of Huffister. Meanwhile, the Black Sword Guild oversaw the general identification of friends and enemies. They were the ones in charge of deciding whom to execute or assist, and they made decisions regarding the method of execution. The Council of Elders held a great deal of power within the clan, and the Black Sword Guild held the greatest power among them all. Once they decided to kill someone within Huffister, an innocent person could become an enemy of the state overnight, and even clan collaborators could turn into traitors. These old souls could eliminate anyone in Huffister, whether they were commoners or nobles. Of course, despite their unquestionable authority, there were systems in place to keep them in check. The Patriarch and his partner, along with the 12 flag-bearers, could exercise control over their actions. Specifically, the Patriarch's order was absolute. This meant that even if the guild ordered someone's execution, the Patriarch could veto the decision and have the name immediately removed from the list of condemned. That's how Jin's name was taken off the Runcandle clan's hit list. Jean Runcandle? Yes. Chief Elder? 19 years old this year. Your name was listed on the Runcandle death order on January 1, 1798. And on February 9, 1799, today around noon, your name was removed from the list. The chief elder and master of the Black Sword Guild, Jordan Runcandle, raised his eyebrows as if greatly displeased by this. His voice was frail and shaky, far from what one would imagine from a Runcandle. It was accompanied by a thin white beard under his chin, making it impossible to take him seriously. He doesn't seem like much, but this cousin of my father is a remarkable self-made man. He survived competing for the patriarchate against my father and still managed to gain some power. The race for power within the Runcandle clan mainly occurred among the patriarch's sons, who were the flag-bearers. But in some special cases where the successor eliminated all the other flag-bearers too early or there were particularly notable figures in the patriarch's cousins' families, things worked somewhat differently. In Jordan's case, both scenarios applied to him. He showed his potential in his youth and competed in the ranking war against Siren as a second-tier flag-bearer. Of course, the difference between Jordan and Siren was like comparing a sparrow to a phoenix. But if he had faced any ordinary pureblood who wasn't Siren, most would have believed that Jordan was the phoenix. He could have become the patriarch if not for Siren. How do you feel? I feel fine, Chief Elder. Sure. I'm sure this must be a pleasant occasion for you. But for me, this was quite an unpleasant experience. A wanted criminal voluntarily returns, only to become a flag-bearer. Jordan unabashedly revealed his disagreement with Siren's decision. The whole clan knows Uncle Jordan's feeling of fear and inferiority in front of my father and his peculiar character born out of that issue. But I never knew he could be so audacious. It was obvious why he was so disgusted. Not only was he the highest authority in the Council of Elders, but also no elder would dare report him to Siren for such a trivial matter. Moreover, Jordan was a powerful ally of Rosa. The elders were all old and didn't have much in their favor, so there was no reason for common elders to go against him. Please calm down, Chief Elder. I, too, am quite displeased that a magic swordsman has become a Runcandle flag-bearer, but he surely deserves a welcome, if only for today. The vice-chief of the lawkeepers, Lynn Milcano, spoke softly. The former matriarch of the Milcano clan was also an ally of Rosa. This meant that the Black Sword Guild and the lawkeepers, two pillars of the Council of Elders, were already fully supportive of Joshua. The council secretary master of the People's Guard, Telrod Runcandle, simply looked at Jean without speaking. Yes, you're right, Vice-Chief Elder. We were supposed to celebrate the birth of the 12th flag-bearer of the clan. Yes, congratulations. Jean Runcandle. After saying those words, Jordan waved his hands insincerely. He was shooing Jean away. I expected this, but it surpasses my expectations. And to think they don't even mention the final moves. Normally, the elders would congratulate the new flag-bearers and give them instructions on the final and secret moves during their first visit to the council. But with Jordan blatantly showing his disagreement, none of the elders could offer to do so. Anyway, who cared? In the first place, Jean never expected much from them. But Jean noticed a single elder who was watching everything with a deeply furrowed brow. Jed Runcandle. He was Jin's uncle who had instructed him in his cadet days. It seemed that he would tear Jordan apart right now if he could. But obviously, he had to deal with his frustrations because he couldn't say a word. It was no wonder he felt that way. Seeing the boy he had mentored being ignored was no different from his own efforts being ignored. He should give Uncle Jed a small gift. Jean met Jordan with a simple look. Thank you for your congratulations, Chief Elder. Sure, you can leave now. I didn't know you were still there. I wouldn't have survived if it weren't for you, Chief Elder. Jin's words had an immediate impact. Jordan's eyes turned bloodshot. Bam! Jordan pounded the podium with his fist and stared at Jean. What did you just say? His anger stemmed from the same reason that caused frustration in Jed. That little boy who had just been appointed as a flag-bearer had mocked him. I wouldn't have survived if it weren't for you, Chief Elder. Jin's words had an immediate impact. Jordan's eyes turned bloodshot. Bam! Jordan pounded the podium with his fist and stared at Jean. What did you just say? His anger stemmed from the same reason that caused frustration in Jed. That little boy who had just been appointed as a flag-bearer had mocked him. I understand that you were also quite harsh with him, Chief Elder. In any case, it seems no one wants to teach him the final moves, so I volunteer to teach the 12th flag-bearer the clan's final moves before I become too old and weak to do so. Very well, as you wish. But Elder Jed, I hope you haven't forgotten. There are quite a few final and secret moves that you cannot transmit without the majority vote of the Council of Elders. Veins bulged on Jed's forehead. He was a common elder who was rather obstinate and temperamental. On the other hand, Jordan and Lin were the chief and vice-chief elders who led the rest of the common elders. It was obvious whose opinion the elders would follow. But Jed did not show his embarrassment and replied, I'm not foolish. Of course, I remember the law. If everyone does not agree with my opinion, I will only teach him what I am allowed to. Then let's put it to a vote here and now. Elders in favor of instructing the 12th flag-bearer in the final moves, raise your hand. Jordan shouted, to which the entire council fell into complete silence. Come on, old bags of bones. I know you're all afraid of Jordan, but seriously? Not a single person. What has Jean done? In fact, Jean should be congratulated for standing up against the chief elder like a run candle. Not a single person raised their hand. Even the one person Jed trusted, the master of the People's Guard, Telrod Runcandle, was busy avoiding Jed's gaze. Oh well, the result is as you can see. It's a shame, Elder Jed. I suppose we can release the 12th flag-bearer now. You can do whatever you want with the remaining final moves that do not require the approval of the Council of Elders. The Run Candles had 10 final moves, 7 secret moves, and 3 profound mysteries. But the profound mysteries were not something the Council of Elders could teach. Aside from those, 8 of the final moves and 5 of the secret moves required the majority vote of the Council of Elders to be transmitted. Therefore, only the final moves and the secret moves that the elders deemed low-level could be transmitted to Jean. Jed nodded, trying to suppress his frustration. I'm sorry, Jean. That's what Jed thought to himself. But Jean felt he had gained more than he had expected from the meeting with the elders. Anyway, some of the final moves derived from the battle god's combat technique and the Sword of Legends. Besides, I don't have an urgent need to improve my skills at the moment. On the other hand, the discovery of a friendly force in the form of Jed Runcandle was quite a gain. He thought it would be quite troublesome to persuade the Council of Elders if even his Uncle Jed had been on Joshua's side. I can always deal with Uncle Jordan in due time. Actually, the master of the lawkeepers, Lin Milcano, seems to be the toughest one. I wonder what this old lady's weakness is. The Milcano clan. It so happened that Jean knew someone from that clan. Chapter 269. Reliable but unwelcome flag-bearer 2. As Jean left, the Elder Council disbanded as well. Jed followed him and nudged him in the side. Uncle Jed, I apologize for not being able to greet you earlier due to the circumstances. That's not the first thing you need to tell me. I was wondering how the hell you completed that Mommeat mission in your intermediate class days. And to think it had been through magic. When did you learn all that magic then? Oh, it must have been Lord Murakan, I suppose. I had no other choice if I wanted to survive. I apologize. Oh, it's not cheeky of you to say so. If only Jed could open his young nephew's head and see how he was wired. Jean. Yes, uncle? I rushed ahead because your actions were quite refreshing, but Chief Elder Jordan is a tougher man to deal with than you think. He may seem like a petty old man full of ego, but he's actually a strong figure with a lot of cunning as well. Yes, I'm aware. I assumed so since he survived his rank war against my father. Well, I guess it should be said that your father let him be, actually. But why would a boy aware of his character bark like a rabid dog? I simply stayed true to your teachings, uncle. What did you say? Wasn't it you who told me to fight and strive every day when I was in the intermediate class? I've stayed true to those words my whole life, and my provocation against the chief elder was an extension of that effort. Jed couldn't speak for some time. He, too, seemed to have had gall the size of a house in his cadet days. But look at this crazy little brat. Not even the patriarch was like him in his youth. Just like in the days of the intermediate class, Jean instantly captivated Jed. Everything in moderation. If you keep this up, You might die before even getting to use the final movements in a real battle. I'll teach you the movements soon, so wait for my call. Thank you, uncle. I won't forget what you've done for me today, but I'm willing to forget you completely if I see you straying from the path. He said it in earnest. He knew it. Anyone who shows me favor always seems to regard me as a villain as well. A villain, or possibly the prodigal son who returned. That's exactly what the people of the Runcandle clan saw in Jean. Siren and Luna were the only two people who welcomed Jean wholeheartedly, but Siren never showed it, and Luna still couldn't openly show her favor towards Jean. Emma was also one of those who welcomed Jean, but her motive was to use Jean to ensure the safety of the Tana and her own. Jean didn't really sit well with her. Discrimination and prejudice. Jean had already mastered fighting against those things in his previous life. At least in this life, there was a reason people treated him like a villain. It was more or less acceptable. After bidding farewell to Jed, Jean was about to head back to his room where Gilly and Murakan were waiting for him. Young Master Jean, a middle-aged man with neatly combed-back hair, approached him and bowed his head. Jean inspected his clothes for a moment and returned the greeting. Congratulations on your promotion, Petro. I see you've been promoted to first-class butler. Thank you. I just wanted to inform you that the Patriarch has called for a flag-bearers meeting. I must congratulate you as well, young master. It's your first flag-bearers meeting. Please head to the Patriarch's office. Just returning to the clan, Jean endured Siren's sword strike, went through the appointment ceremony, met with the elders, and now had to attend a meeting. By this point, Jean was starting to feel like his first day back was quite eventful. I see. I'm very glad you've returned safe and sound. I hope I can be of great use to you in the future, young master. Thank you for welcoming me. It was the first time someone from the Garden of Swords warmly and sincerely greeted him since his return. But for some reason, Jean had a bad feeling about the way Petro spoke. It wasn't because he thought Petro meant something different than what he said, but rather a random bad feeling about what was about to happen. As Jean arrived at the office, the gazes of his siblings, who had been waiting for him, fell upon him. Jean looked at them and didn't notice anything in particular, aside from the sadness on Luna's face. Has something happened to Luna? He had a feeling that Petro was acting in a way that hinted at something bad. Petro was on Luna's side. Everyone is here. Please have a seat. Yes, Patriarch. Jean sat in the last seat. Without any explanations or preamble, Siren began with these words. Starting today, I will be returning to the Dark Sea, Black Sea. There have been several occasions that made me return to the clan lately, but this time, I intend not to leave the Dark Sea until some significant progress is made. The flag-bearers nodded with heavy hearts. No one dared to ask what kind of progress he sought in the Dark Sea. In addition, the first flag-bearer and 3 Black Knights will accompany me on this mission to the Dark Sea. That was why Luna looked so down. Jean intentionally avoided looking at her. Luna's sudden call to the mission was quite a shock. But showing concern for Luna in front of Siren would prove to be a critical mistake. His father could always interpret those slight actions as, I can't do anything without my older sister Luna. To say that I've had many occasions to return from the Dark Sea means that the flag-bearers have not met my expectations so far. I hope you all improve on this. We apologize, Patriarch. We apologize. All the flag-bearers bowed their heads. Rosa spoke next. With the sending of the first flag-bearer on a long-term mission, you will all experience an increased workload. But with our new 12th flag-bearer, we hope that part of that burden will be covered. Flag-bearers, therefore, stay alert. But there is no need for great concern. With that statement, Rosa downplayed Luna and predicted Jin's future. Rosa's words made the 1st and 12th flag-bearers sound equal and essentially meant that Luna's tasks would be passed on to Jean. It seems she is determined to bleed me dry. Jean was glad. It was better to be assigned impossible tasks and somehow deliver results than to be given no mission at all. Sabotage and intentional misinterpretations would come later, of course, but he just had to carry out all the tasks assigned to him without ever failing. Once that continued, Jean would eventually gain control of the situation. Mother and Joshua would resort to all sorts of dirty tricks to ensure that day never arrived. Rosa's methods were not much different from how Joshua, and pressured Jean. But even if they resorted to a similar trick, Jean had to stay on guard if it was Rosa executing it. She was much wiser and stronger than Joshua. For several decades now, she had commanded the Garden of Swords in Siren's absence, who was always in the Dark Sea. She had the entire clan in her hands. As always, Rosa takes supreme command of the clan in my absence. Deciding ranks among each other is important as well, but always keep in mind that these are not good times. It was quite surprising to hear Siren tell them to be calm in the rank war due to the current state in his own words. He basically strengthened Rosa's words and also reminded Jean that there were heaps of things he didn't know in the world of flagbearers. Third flagbearer? Yes, Patriarch? How many Zippel spies do we have in the Garden of Swords at the moment? As confirmed so far, there are 97 servants, 20 low-level Guardian Knights, 12 medium-level Guardian Knights, 5 high-level Guardian Knights, 15 second-class or higher butlers and scribes, 2 second-level flagbearers, 5 execution knights, 7 elders, and 1 black knight. We estimate there are at least another 20 who may have access to critical information. Jean almost let out a gasp of astonishment after hearing Lunch's report. A black knight as well? Seriously? Second-level flagbearers and execution knights were already quite shocking, but it was truly astonishing to hear that a confirmed spy was a black knight. How many spies do we have in the Zippel clan? In the Zippel clan's household, we have 40 servants, 10 low-level magicians, 5 medium-level magicians, 1 elder, 1 magician in the magic tower. That's all, sir. For a moment, Jean wondered if this conversation was some kind of initiation ritual meant to scare the incoming flagbearer by exaggerating the current states of the information war. But Siren Runcandle wasn't someone who cared for such petty games. As you can see, they maintain a high level of security with different enchantments and artifacts. On the other hand, the Garden of Swords seems to be literally within their crystal ball's reach. It's all my fault, Patriarch. I can only lament the fact that our enemies still have the upper hand even after all this time since I reached the Divine Star. It's not your fault. However, we would need to get rid of that Black Knight spy immediately. I plan to assign the task to the 12th flagbearer as her first mission. The only ones who remained unfazed by his words were Jean himself and Joshua. The rest of his siblings startled for a second. Some thought it was too much, some were glad that Jean was given a difficult task, and some feared that he would use the power of Mirakin, his guardian dragon, to successfully complete the mission. Even accounting for the secrets of his shadow energy and magic, Jean had always returned triumphantly from every mission where they thought he would surely die. That's why his siblings were anxious to see if he would truly be able to kill a Black Knight. I'll leave that to your discretion. Rosa made a slight bow, and Siren directed his gaze at Jean. However, he didn't say anything in particular to his son. Siren's personal guidance and instruction, both given directly and indirectly, had come to an end. But that also meant that Jean had truly earned Siren's trust. The meeting has concluded. The first, second, third, and fourth flagbearers will stay behind. The rest may leave and await further instructions from Rosa. The flagbearers left the office and dispersed to their respective residences. Ran and Vuigo gave some instructions to their butlers, who were outside the office, and left the hallway. Mio and didn't forget to flash a disturbing smile at Jean before disappearing. The Tana twins seemed to want to strike up a conversation with Jean but stood still, and left because they couldn't think of what to say. Jean chuckled as he watched the Tana twins walk away. The last of his siblings gave him a strong tap on the shoulder. Hey, look at you, brat. You've come back after remarkable growth. I'm so glad. Hello, Sister Mary. I was super anxious as soon as I saw you. I thought all my hair would fall out from stress. Let's go. It's time for me to receive my reward for that phoenix heart. I thought I needed something too to clear my head from all these thoughts. Shall we grab a drink and share some long overdue stories? Mary immediately frowned. What the hell are you talking about? Do you think I've been waiting all these years just to drink with you? Come and follow me. Let's spar. Jean looked at her and gave her a smile. I'll have to say no, Mary. Chapter 270, Brother and Sister 1, Glug, glug, glug. The famous Mila liquor filled the glass, but Mary looked dazed, as if her soul had been sucked out. She appeared desolate. In fact, the mental shock she was going through was as terrible as heartbreak. No, this can't be true. Do you have any idea how long I've waited? How could he reject me like this and leave? Does this make any sense? How am I supposed to accept this? Don't bother. Dyphus, who was sitting across from her, simply shrugged. Mary immediately glared at him. Look, dear brother Dyphus, it seems like you think this is all very easy because it's not your problem. But you see, the amount of shock I'm going through right now is indescribable. Okay? The two had been drinking in Mary's room since the flag-bearers' meeting ended. Is it something to be so shocked about? The really shocking thing is that Father declared his return to the Dark Sea as soon as he arrived. Imagine how the martial arts clans of Huffister will complain again. They have been longing for his return. The flag-bearers will be busy for some time as we'll have to console them. As Dyphus said, the clans under Runcandle's control, especially the smaller ones, had been eagerly awaiting Siren's return. It was because of the Zippel clan. Since the incident in the Holy Kingdom, the Cold War between Runcandle and Zippel had intensified and was reaching a turning point. Things were going better here in Kalen, where the Garden of Swords was located, or in other places with considerable forces, but the smaller factions and clans were suffocating under the pressures exerted on them by the Cold War. They call it a Cold War, but it's not really. These kinds of things don't get reported in the press. But there are clashes with the Lutero-Magical Federation every day in various places. The smaller clans thought Father's return would give them a respite. But finding out that Siren was returning as soon as he arrived was extremely disappointing news for them. Therefore, the Runcandle clan's flag-bearers would have to visit all of Huffister, starting tomorrow. The role of the flag-bearers was to alleviate the concerns of the smaller factions in place of Siren and take necessary measures for their problems to satisfy their physical and mental needs. Arg! That ungrateful brat! How could you do this to me? Mary cried out in sadness and clenched her fist. The glass, which had been carefully crafted by the master craftsman of Corano, shattered and ended up on the floor. Are you even listening to what I'm saying? Dyphus brought his hand to his forehead as he handed Mary a handkerchief. Listen to me, Dyphus. The clans under our control and the Lutero-Magical Federation are always fighting. It's nothing new. It's the norm. How is it that the norm is more important than what I'm feeling right now? Yes. Let's forget about it. Mary grabbed the bottle of liquor from Dyphus's hand and started gulping it down. It had been a while since she felt so agitated. By the way, Mary, about our younger brother. Yes. He arrived riding on Murakan, the dark dragon guardian of the clan. So that must mean he's also Soderet's contractor. I'm sure he was involved in the West Sea battle between the Secret Palace and the Zippel. Whoa, you're right. The West Sea battle was a three-way battle between the ruler of the Secret Palace, the Zippel, and the Dark Dragon. Right? As I see it, the ruler of the Secret Palace was protecting Jean in the West Sea battle, which means he must have stayed in the Secret Palace since then. But the Zippel won that battle. How could Jean stay in the Secret Palace? There must have been a negotiation. This is my theory. The winner of the West Sea battle was actually the Secret Palace, not the Zippel. And by declaring the battle as their defeat, the ruler of the Secret Palace negotiated with the Zippel to ensure Jin's safety for a year. Mary nodded with great intrigue. Oh, that's a very convincing theory. After Jean exposed their atrocities in the incident in the Holy Kingdom, the dignity of the Zippel was plummeting day by day. It was no wonder, considering they were not waging all-out wars after being completely humiliated by Jean, a provisional flag-bearer, and they still couldn't capture him even after putting 100 million coins on his head. Not only Andre, Myron, and Karl died, the incident in the Holy Kingdom also happened. And now they even lost to the Secret Palace? They can't afford that. The Zippel would have wanted to prevent their volatile dignity and reputation from further plummeting, even if it meant giving up on Jean. I was curious about how Jean managed to stay alive, away from the Zippel and our efforts to find him. But if the ruler of the secret palace was protecting him, that would make sense. But does she have a reason to protect Jean? Don't you remember? The daughter of the secret palace kissed Jean at the banquet, remember? Yes, I remember. But what about it? The secret palace is very different from how things are in our clan. The ruler of the secret palace values her daughter more than her own life. I investigated it after the banquet and found out that the daughter of the secret palace had no romantic interests before. She's different from her mother. Jean was her first. So she helped Jean because her daughter would be saddened if Jean died. Is that it? That's right. If what you're saying is true, then the ruler of the secret palace must think of Jean as a potential son-in-law. Yes, and father must also be behind some of this. What? Don't you think father accepted Jean as a flag-bearer too easily? Too easily? You also saw Jean withstand father's sword strike with your own eyes, right? Mary. Father must have known the moment he laid eyes on the boy that he had the ability to take the sword with all his mastery behind it. He was fully aware of it, but still did it in front of everyone watching so that everyone would come to accept Jean just like you do now. Mary's eyes widened. Dyphus continued with great confidence in his theory. Therefore, father must also be optimistic about Jean and the daughter of the secret palace's marriage, just like the ruler of the secret palace. There's no reason to reject building marriage alliances between the Run Candle and the secret palace in the current state. Marriage, huh? That's right. The Run Candle clan won't lose anything by forgiving Jean and marrying him off to the secret palace. If the Zippel demand accountability in the future, we could deflect it to the secret palace, and Jin's deviation from the legitimacy of the clan won't be much of a problem if he also belongs to the secret palace. And even if we enter into a large-scale war against the Zippel clan, the secret palace will also stand by the Run Candle. Yes, that's right. No wonder he didn't accept a battle against me. His life was spared for a year after the ruler of the secret palace faked the defeat. It wouldn't be good for him to show people that he doesn't value his life by fighting me on the day of his return. By the way, Dyphus. What? It's about Mother. She said she will assign the capture of the Black Knight spy as Jin's first mission as a flag-bearer. Remember? According to your theory, father wants to hand Jean over to the secret palace. But Mother sounded like she would push Jean to the limit from the beginning. I'm not sure about Mother's intentions either. Maybe she just wants to get rid of him because he might harm Joshua in some way, as she also can't directly go against father's decision. Dyphus continued after shrugging his shoulders. Or maybe my theory is completely wrong. Either way, we'll have to pay close attention to the state of things for a while. Talking about all these complicated things just made me more frustrated. Damn. This wasn't what I was supposed to worry about, wasn't it? Why should I worry about what our parents think? I was supposed to worry about how to arrange a fight against him as soon as possible. You changed the subject, Dyphus. Are you talking about that again? Come on. Even Dyphus had to raise his voice at this point. Big brother, everything you just said made you sound quite smart. Why don't you offer some suggestions instead? Dyphus was about to raise his voice again but sighed instead. Yes, again, that's Mary. A straightforward girl who loved to fight and never accepted defeat. Mary firmly believed that fighting against the powerful was the most valuable thing one could do in life. Unlike the other siblings, she had no ulterior motives, was not blinded by jealousy, and was not engulfed in inferiority or ego. That's why Dyphus liked Mary above all his siblings. In fact, she was the only person he liked among them all. Ugh, fine. You're impossible. Completely impossible. Although it doesn't sound entirely impossible. I'm talking about a way you could lure Jean into a fight. Oh, what is it? What is it? Mary grabbed Dyphus by the collar with shining eyes. Not many people could look so friendly while holding someone. By the collar. First, let me go, and then go cut some fruits since we don't have anything to accompany the drinks. Okay, I'll cut them. But if your suggestion is stupid, I'll cut your neck along with them. Siren left the Garden of Swords at midnight. There was a majestic formation to welcome his arrival, but by his order, no one was allowed to see him off. Instead, the knights gave him a silent sword salute as he left the Garden of Swords. Jean stood by the window and waved to Siren until he could no longer see his father. Jean. It was Luna. She was going to visit Hewister tomorrow to encourage the clans under her control for a month before heading to the Dark Sea. Yes, Luna? There were so many things I wanted to do with you once you came back. I had no idea things would turn out like this. I can't imagine what kind of things you'll have to face while I'm not here. I can't even give you a pendant anymore. That's a strange thing to worry about. Do I still seem so weak to you, Luna? No. But Mother showed blatant hostilities toward you, and the elders don't seem like they'll teach you the latest moves either. And now, even I have to leave your side. I feel horrible inside. I hope you don't take it the wrong way, but everything that has happened after I became a flag bearer isn't as bad as I thought. Really? In fact, it wouldn't have seemed strange to me even if I were captured and dragged to the underground cells as soon as I returned. But Father gave me a chance before he left. And Mother, well, she still seems to underestimate me. Underestimate you? She's trying to fight me fairly. If I were her, I would have demanded my death as soon as I returned, even if it meant going against Father's decision. She also had justification for it. Challenging the Patriarch's authority in front of the clan's eyes is somewhat a more severe blow against the clan than treason. Do you think challenging Father's authority once, compared to what I will start contributing to the clan, is more threatening to the Run Candles led by Joshua? Not to the current Run Candles, but to the Run Candles led by Joshua. Luna didn't take long to decide. The latter is more threatening. That's the point. Mother made a mistake from the beginning. She missed the best opportunity she will ever have, just like Joshua did. At that moment, Luna felt chills around her neck. Jean had never been a boy she had to worry about. In fact, she had to be careful not to cause him any worry. Even your journey to the Dark Sea is good news for me. The mission that Father and the previous generation of Black Knights had been carrying out in the area, and the reason why our father has been so focused on the Dark Sea. Please investigate it thoroughly on this mission. Not even Luna, the first flag bearer, understood why Siren was so obsessed with the Dark Sea. The claim that it's for your training is probably only half of the truth, Jean said. I understand. It's the first time Father has taken someone from our generation to the Dark Sea. So I'll try to bring you news that pleases you. In return, you'll have to drink with me all night and tell me the things you've experienced outside the clan. Luna, go on, my brother. The fact that we only have one day to freely talk to each other is probably more annoying for me than for you. Is this the same boy who struck me so strongly with the sword at the flag-bearer appointment ceremony? That was just a childish display of talent, in a way. Just to say that you'll have to be prepared as well if you want to challenge me from now on, or something like that. Haha, I suppose that makes sense. But I wonder when you'll be admired by everyone with nothing more than the sword, like your dear sister. It won't take long. The siblings shared drinks throughout the night.